Bonjour, Kinamagi Ireland Indigenous, and welcome to this production of the My Math Network. Today's lesson, Chapter 10, Lesson 7, Multiply Mixed Numbers. We'll begin today's episode by looking at our previous session's work. In our previous session, we were multiplying fractions. The key parts to remember are multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then write in simplest form. We always multiply the top, multiply the bottom, and then simplify. In the case of an improper fraction, our simplification might be more equatable to division. So let's look at what we had. We had 12 70-seconds, which is 1/6. 15 30-seconds, which is already simplified. 3 30-seconds, also simplified. 3 15ths, which is simplified into 1/5. 5 times 1 is 5. 7 times 4 is 28. 5 28ths. We have 14 70-seconds, which simplifies into 7 36. We have 2 over 20, which is equal to 1 over 10. 4 over 15. They asked you to remember back to the properties. When you change the order, it is commutative. When you multiply by 1, it is identity. And then you see our final answer, 5 6 times 1/2 is 5 twelfths. So just remember to multiply across the top. 2 times 2. Multiply across the bottom, 15s. You get 4 15ths. And then if it can be simplified, simplify it. If you get something with a 1 on top, clearly you already know. In the case of 4 15ths, the common factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. For 15, it was 1, 3, 5, and 15. The largest one there in both of those lists was 1, so there's nothing else to do to it. Let's take a moment to look at what today's assignment will bring us. And you can see it brings us back to some drawing. We're going to be multiplying mixed numbers. And part of what you're going to need to remember today is the easiest way to do this is to turn these mixed numbers into improper fractions. I'll be showing you how 2 1/4, you take 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, and you keep your denominator, so 9/4. Denominator times whole number plus numerator. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, and you keep the denominator thirds. After you get to this point, it now becomes very similar to what we were doing previously. 9 times 4 is 36 over 12, so 36 twelfths. And then 12 goes into 36 evenly 3 times, so we had an answer of 3. So that's what we're looking at. So you'll need to be able to convert mixed numbers into improper fractions, and then you'll need to simplify improper fractions. Everything else is about the same. And you see that's a little bit longer assignment with 8 questions. Let's return back to our essential question today. What strategies can be used to multiply and divide fractions? And we'll see today that we need the strategy of being able to convert a mixed number into an improper fraction. We'll need the strategy of simplifying. And now let's move forward here. This part is not in your book. How do I multiply mixed numbers? And we just saw an example there. So let's go with 3 2/5 times, get big, 9 2/3. So the first thing I need to do is I need to turn this into an improper fraction. So we multiply the denominator by the whole number. So that's 5 times 3 is 15. And I add the numerator. Plus 2 is 17. 17 fifths. It can be a big number. Now I go over here, I multiply the denominator by the whole number, which is 27. 3 times 9 is 27. Plus 2 is 29. And I'm quickly regretting my choice of numbers off the top of my head, because now I have to multiply 29 times 17. And as you are aware, sometimes it's easier to, this is where a calculator might become your friend, if necessary. Or you can do the old-fashioned way of 29 times 17. Nine times 7 is 63. 6. 7 times 2 is 14. So it becomes 20. Put a 0 here because we're going, this is a 10 and not a 1. And then I have, well, it's going to be 29. And we end up with 493. Fifteenths. And being that we're doing 493 fifteenths, you're going to want to use your division skills. And when you do this, you take your numerator or your denominator, which is your divisor. Think of the D's, denominator and divisor, and you put it into your numerator. And, you know, in this lesson, you get, because of the numbers I chose, you're getting some free bonus reminders of our standard algorithms. So now I divide. 15 does not go into 4, but it goes into 49 3 times. So I'll put the 3 right here. Multiply. 3 times 15 is 45. Now I subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. I don't have to do anything. 4 is less than 15, so I'm going to bring down the 3. And I remember that 3 times 15 was 45, which is bigger than 43. So let's just go to 2. 2 times 15 is 30. Now I subtract again. 3 minus 0 is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. So what I end up getting is 32 and remainder 13. Another way to write that is 32, because my whole number didn't change. I take my remainder and make it the numerator. And I keep my divisor or denominator is 15. So 32 and 13 fifteenths is my final answer. You generally won't get numbers this big. But here on this early recording morning, we picked a random number that brought us big numbers. You'll also know you can use this answer that I'm underlining right here instead of remainders, especially as you go into middle school. A lot of your teachers will ask you to go into their decimal or fraction instead of using remainders. And that's the exact same way to do it. All right, let's move forward. This is still not in your book. Let's pick an easier number. Yay. Multiply 2 1/3 times 2 using fraction tiles to model the multiplication. Well, I don't have the fraction tiles loaded, but I have an access to them. So let me go to our classroom Padlet. And this is linked in your classroom. Of course, it's going slow. And under math, there are fraction tiles. So now I need, well, they call fraction strips here. I need to go 2 1/3. Oh, I don't have enough lines. Times 2. So now I'll do it again. Yeah, I can't go that far. So these fraction tiles are not going to be of much use to me right here. But we tried. Let's see what they have if they showed them to us. And they didn't. I'm not sure why you would have wanted to use fraction tiles there. But what I would have done here, I need to turn it into mixed numbers. So I take my denominator times the whole number. 3 times 2 is 6, plus the numerator, which is 7 over 3. And if you remember from the other day, we convert this into a fraction by putting it over 1. So now I get 14. 7 times 2 is 14 over 3. 3 goes into 14 4 times. And there's going to be a remainder of 2 because 3 times 4 is 12. So this is where I get my 4. The remainder is 2. And the denominator is still 3. 4 2/3. Let me go ahead and clear that. Follow the steps below to multiply 5 3/4 times 6. So again, pay attention to the steps because that's the part that's going to matter most. Rewrite 5 3/4 as an improper fraction. So 4 times 5 is 20 plus 3 is 23. If you remember to multiply the denominator by the whole number and then add the numerator, this will get easy. And then 6 is an improper fraction of 6 over 1. Now I can go ahead and multiply them. So I'm going to rewrite it here, 23 over 4 times 6 over 1. And 23 times 6, 20 times 6 is 120, plus 18 is going to be 138. So I want to see how they're doing this real quick. So the chart is a little... Okay, so they wrote it out like this. I'm moving. I skipped this step because I can visualize 23 times 6 and 4 times 1. So we multiplied 23 times 6, we get 138. 4 times 1 is 4. We simplify, and you may, again, want to use division. 4 goes into 138 34 times. But how do I know that, Mr. I? I can do this. Back to our old friend, the standard algorithm of subtract or division. 4, 8, 12, so 3 times. Then I multiply 3 times 4 is 12, which I should know what I was getting because I was just skip counting. Subtract, I get a 1. 1 is smaller than 4, I bring down an 8. 4 goes into 18 4 times because 4, 8, 12, 16. And the next one would put us over. And just like the Price is Right, we can't do that. So we get 34. That's where that comes from. The remainder of 2 goes right here. And we keep our divisor as the denominator of 4. And then we simplify because 2/4 are both even numbers. So we know that they're both divisible by 2. So we get 34.5. It's up to you whether you want this step. If you go directly from here, having written it out to here, I won't find any qualms with that because essentially we've got it written out. But it is good to see. But in your reality, it'll be up to you. All right, let's get into the book. You're going to want to open your book to page 745. If you don't have your book, you should pause the video and get it. The expectation is that you'll fill this in as you go in order to create an artifact that you'll have later. And we're on example basic. I want to show you some things here. We have half. So all the way across is 1, but you'll notice that there are some darker lines right where I'm putting the purple. Each of these represent a whole one. So you have 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes, 4 holes. We're not going to end up filling all of it, but that's your visual. And I have each hole split in 2 because that's my denominator. So the model shows 1/2 times 3.5. Shade the squares that represent the product. So let's get a yellow, a fine yellow here. I'm only going to want to do on the half because it says 1/2. So this part we're going to leave alone. But how far over do I go? Well, it says 3.5. So 1, 2, 3.5. And you can see they've drawn the line there for me because they're so very considerate. And also because it marks 3.5. So now I have that shaded in. How many squares did I shade in? Basic, niche, sway, niwin, nanan, go wasway, niche wasway. So if you said 7, you're right. But you could have also, as you may have noticed, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So now we can go ahead and rearrange them on our next part. And I'll scroll down to that in just a second. Make sure you've written in the 7 and shaded that part in. That'll allow you to keep up with us. The expectation is that you do. I will always give you a brief warning when I'm about to clear the screen. That usually gives you about 2 seconds. All right, let me go ahead and clear the screen. By the way, when I say give you a warning, clear the screen, if you have to pause the video, that's when you can. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. And you see what we did there is accurate. Now, continuing on the same page of your packet, you see that now we could fill it in. Again, this represents 1 right here. This represents 2, where I marked the lines because we kept the same sizes. We colored in 7. Beige, niche, sway, niwin, not in a good way, niche, sway. So there are 7 sections shaded in. How many are in each one? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So my denominator is 4. And I know that because, well, 2 times 2 is 4. That's my section. Now I can go ahead and write this as a mixed number. 4 goes into 7 once. There's a remainder of 3. And we keep our denominator or divisor. And we have 1 3/4. So go ahead and write that in. Once you've completed writing that in, you may turn to the top of the next page. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. And let's move forward. See the answers? We did well. Yay. There's a key concept at the top of your next page. To multiply mixed numbers, write the mixed numbers as improper fractions. Then multiply as you would with fractions. And we've talked about that several times throughout there. We have to do improper fractions, period. All right, so let's do one here. Let's see what's below there. I already see that I have a helpful hint on my page. To write the mixed number of an improper fraction, multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the numerator. Keep the original denominator. So 2 times 1 plus 1 is 3, and you keep that 2. And you've seen that periodically through this lesson already. They've already drawn this in, fortunately, and you'll notice that this is a 1 right here going across. And again, so this is 1 and 2. Over here, each group of 4 is a hole. So there's 1 hole, there's 2 holes, there's 3. And they marked off 1, 2, 3, and then 3/4 of this one. So we already have that shaded in. As you can tell, this starts to get time consuming with using the model. So let's go ahead and try doing it using improper fractions. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. That's 3/2. And that makes sense because this is a whole one. So our denominator has to be 2 here, and there's 1, 2, 3 halves. There you go. Over here, if you think, well, Mr. I, there's 4, 8, 12, 15. Let's see if that matches up. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. So you can see how we go from those drawings to improper fractions, and we keep the bottom number, the denominator, because there's 4 in each section there. So now I multiply. 3 times 15 is 45. 2 times 4 is 8. I have to simplify that. And I'm going to keep showing you the division way, but you might already have this math fact in your head. That gives you a visual, if nothing else. 8 goes into 45 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. I subtract. I get a 5. 5 is less than 8. So I end up with 5 remainder 5. So how do I write this over here? I take my whole number of the quotient, the non-remainder, and I put it right here. So it's a 5. Then I take my remainder, and it becomes the numerator. And the divisor, remember the letter D, becomes the dividend, 5/8. And that, in fact, is our answer, 5 5/8. Give you a moment to go ahead and write that in before we practice our next one. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to write it in. A few more seconds on this. All right, let's go ahead and clear the screen. If you need to pause the video to continue writing, go for it. Answer. All right, here's the first one I want you to practice. I want you to do this one. And they've kind of helped you out. They've already turned 4 1/5 into 21/5 by 4 times 5, or 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. And they already had a half. They've done the multiplying. So now I want to see whether you can take the multiplying part and simplify this. So to do this, I'm going to ask you to pause your video, solve it, and then unpause the video to see if you're right. You may pause the video now. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. 10 goes into 21 twice, and there's a remainder of 1. And that's all there was to it, 2 1/10. They've done the beginning steps for you. Just going to give you the chance to practice on the final step. And if you had to write it out as division to do that, go for it. Talk about how would I find the product of 2 mixed numbers? Well, remember, we turn them into improper fractions. We multiply, we simplify. Now you're going to show me by doing numbers 1, 2, and 3. So go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done, let's come back to the other side. Welcome back. Let's see how you did, and we'll talk our way through them as well. So you see the answers are there. Now on this one, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, times 2/3. 4 times 2 is 8, 3 times 3 is 9. Here we keep our 2/5. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. We keep our 4. So we end up with 22 20ths. 20 goes into 22 once, and there's a remainder of 2. And so 1 and 2/20 becomes 1 and 1/10. So I'll write that there for you. Let's see it. Over here, 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 is 18. We keep our denominator here, times a quarter. 18 times 1 is 18 over 20. Those are both even numbers, divisible by 2, so we end up with 9/10. So how are we feeling about this part at this point? Hopefully it's starting to make sense to you. I'll go ahead and clear the screen. Let's try one more problem just for funsies here. Let's do number 6, because now you have to convert both. So go ahead and complete number 6, pause your video, and unpause it when you're ready. Go ahead and pause video now. Welcome back. Let's see what we get here. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, over 3. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, over 3. And then 4 times 11 is 44, over 3 times 3, which is 9. And 9 goes into 44 4 times. 9 times 4 is 36, so I have a remainder of 8. Keep my denominator 4 and 8/9. So your key steps today: turn your mixed number into an improper fraction, and you do that by denominator times whole number plus numerator, and keep that denominator. Then multiply, just like we've done in previous lessons, across the top and across the bottom, and then simplify. In this case, simplification required division. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. Let's look again at the homework. We're doing that here. There are some story problems. If you have questions during the course of completing the assignment, do reach out to me. I have faith that you guys will all do great. I look forward to seeing your answers submitted either in person, being it's Friday, or via the Google form. Or if absent that, you could put your name on both sides, take pictures or scan it, and then send it to me via text or email. Hope you have a minute. Minwa Bamapi.